I'm making today's video because of something a friend said to me a couple days ago when he was visiting. He said, Billy, you're always talking about phase in your videos, things being in phase or out of phase. He said, I kind of know what that is, but I don't know what it sounds like. Can you make a video about that? So I told him I would. But I'm also doing this because I am always talking about phase, or should I say polarity sometimes, and I get comments from people that say, hey, you're using these terms interchangeably and not always correctly. So in this video, I'm going to talk about phase, polarity, what in phase and out of phase sounds like, and how you can use that in your production. Check it out. All right, so I was looking up the definitions of polarity and phase, and I got to tell you, it gets kind of complicated, but I'm looking here on the B&H Photo, Video, and Audio website, and I'm just going to read a couple things that they got here. When talking about polarity, it's a reference to an electrical signal's position of voltage above or below a median signal. So it's about position of the sound going like that. Anything that's reversing that polarity, it's just switching it. It's just flipping it. So it's basically kind of like switching the negative and positive terminals of a signal. Or should I clarify, it's actually like switching the hot pin and the cold pin on a balanced line. On the other hand, phase is about a delay in time. It's about the offsetting of one signal in relation to another by it moving back, or I guess maybe forward. So if somebody said it's totally out of phase, it means that the second signal has moved 180 degrees back, which is halfway back. But here's what I find really interesting is that on all mixers and mic pre's, or most mic pre's, there's actually a button to reverse the polarity. And there's a little symbol that looks like this. The funny thing is that the button is reversing polarity, but the symbol is actually the symbol for phase. Go figure. Now, I'm going to be using these terms, polarity and phase, interchangeably because there's a lot of people who use both those terms. And also, I've been saying it the wrong way for so long, not to mention I tend to jumble my words up a lot anyway. So just please bear with me. But either way, it comes into play when you're using multiple mics on the same sound source, such as an acoustic guitar, a drum kit, or a guitar amp. But first, I want to show you some examples. So I've loaded up a 1 kilohertz test tone into Pro Tools. I've got it on 2 tracks at the same volume. You can see it right here. Let's see what that sounds like. You know, if I turn off one of them, of course, it gets quieter. And then back on. Now, if I reverse the polarity, watch what happens. Just disappears. Where'd it go? Crazy, isn't it? This is what happens when something, you got two of the same sound with the polarity exactly reversed. I'll put it back. Now, if I just move it a little bit, it's going to get quieter as I get further down. See? But that's just a pure signal. It's easy to see how that works. Here's another example. I'm going to play some actual music here. This is a instrumental from a project I'm working on called the Tokyo Teens. And I've just got it doubled in here. So everything's exactly in phase. But if I reverse it, literally it goes away. And now, of course, it is the same exact sound source. Let's try this. Let's go. Now, if I just slide it, which now is putting it out of phase. This is the difference. Before it was polarity, this is phase. See, it's getting rid of some of the frequencies, but not all of them. And it all depends on how far you move. If I just move it a little bit more, changes the tone. And of course, if you're thinking about like a guitar pedal, it's actually what a guitar pedal, phase pedal, is doing is it's splitting the signal, and it's actually doing this, it's kind of moving it back and forth. So you get that where it's phasing out certain frequencies and back in. That's what's going on. Pretty cool. Sometimes it sounds neat. Now here's where polarity plays a very important role in the studio every single day, and you probably didn't even know it. Now you've probably noticed that your mic cables here have 3 connectors. You've got a ground, a minus, and a positive. Same thing with all your line level signals here. You've got what they call tip, ring, sleeve. Sleeve, ring, tip. Ground, negative, and positive. And here's what's going on. When your signal leaves the microphone or piece of gear, it comes out, you've got your ground, and don't expect me to explain exactly what a ground is. It's just in everything that's electrical. It's in your light bulbs, your appliances, and all that, but it doesn't carry a signal. It's just there, right? And then you've got your signal right here. This is your sound. Now what happens as it leaves the microphone or the piece of gear is that the signal gets split into 2, and one of them is inverted into a negative signal. So you've got a positive signal and a negative signal. It's exactly reversed, just like we did with the test tone. So up here you've got your positive signal, right? And then you've got the same exact signal, but inverted, right? So it's basically invisible as it goes down the line here. But as it's going down the line, both the positive and the negative are picking up noise. So you're getting noise on the positive and noise on the negative. Now, don't pay too close attention to my artwork here. But what's interesting is that whereas the signal is out of phase from each other, or polarity is reversed, the noise is actually the same. It's in phase. The polarity is the same on both the positive and the negative. When it gets to the receiving end, the piece of gear, the mic pre it's going into, what happens is the negative signal down here gets converted to a positive signal. So it's going to join back up with a positive. Boom. Now they're back in phase. But what's interesting is now the noise that has been in phase with itself, or the polarity is the same, now the noise is 180 degrees out of phase with each other. And it virtually disappears, just like on the earlier example. Pretty cool. And here's where your awareness of phase can affect the quality of what you hear in your studio every single day, and that is your listening position. If you've got your speakers at different heights, or one's further away from you or something like that, trust me, you're going to get some weird stuff going on, because certain sounds are going to reach your ears at different times from each speaker and mess it up. Check it out. Look at this diagram here. This is from some PDFs that are on my Patreon site and are free for all my patrons. You want to make sure that you are sitting an equal distance from each speaker. And to some degree, the same is true for early reflections, like sounds bouncing off the ceiling and coming down and from the walls. That can induce some phase anomalies as well. Here's an example of another PDF I have on my Patreon site. Maybe you should go join up on that thing. I got a lot of stuff there.